first time ever.
Hear you loud and clearly.
And it was going place.
That stuff's great.
But the game is not a roguelike.
Boomer shooter.
Bang.
Hello, this is John St. John, and you're listening to KEEP in the Keep, bringing you all the hits from the finest in the world of gaming and entertainment. Now sit back and relax as the drowned god Cthulhu lulls your mind with the tastiest talk in town.
Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep podcast. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode. The Keep is a collective of gaming enthusiasts compelled by the drowned god Cthulhu to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity.
As soon as I got myself my first PC, I knew I had to try and make a game. And a couple of weeks later, I already knew that I will never be a programmer. Like, never. But I just kept writing stories and I tried hacking games like those that were shipped with DOS. It had a couple of basic games, and I tried to, like, there was this game called Nibbles or Nibbler or whatever, like a Nokia Snake type of thing, and I hacked it to be like the laser bikes from Tron movie.
Yeah.
And but that was it. That was like my limit of programming aptitude. And then there was this amazing piece of software called Click and Play by ClickTeam. That was basically what you see is what you get games editor for Windows, based on Amos, I believe. And that's how I made my first game at 14 years of age, and everyone at my school played my first game. And I felt like, all right, this is probably it. I still enjoy writing and doing all that stuff, but making games is going to be a huge part of my life. And then I went through testing games, through marketing at GOG, because I was a part of the marketing team at GOG. That's how I met Fred from Freedom Realms, and that's when I met Dave Oshry when we were launching Rise of the Triad at GOG. And I just stuck with it. I just stuck with doing gaming related stuff for most of my life. Well, my adult life anyway.
So that's actually an interesting point, is like when you meet those guys when Rot was coming out, did you already like kind of think maybe one day you would be releasing a game that was analogous to that, like the rise of the boomer shooter sort of, even though Elderborn is not really a shooter, but I think it still fits.
We like to call it a boomer slasher. Well, at the time, when Rise of the Triad was coming out on GOG, I don't think there was any hype for those kind of games. Like, GOG was a special place because we had all the classics, and Rise of the Triad was launching side by side with games like Chasm the Rift or I don't know. I don't believe we had Duke back then, but there was plenty of old school shooters on GOG. So I remember the GOG crowd, which is very, very critical of indie games. Well, even more so back then. They were very skeptical about Rise of the Triad. And right. I remember that it really took some effort to win them over. And what the guys at New Bloods made with the game and at 3D Realms, like, immediately released a patch and an upgrade and some additional content, and they just kept adding to the game and they connected with the crowd and actually talked with people. That was a huge, I think, thing for the players as well, because they were used to the situation that the games, the shooters that they play, are already from companies that don't really talk to people anymore, because either they're already so huge that you can only talk to the community manager, or they're long gone. And I think that a huge part of why the boomer shooter succeeded as a genre is because it kept so close to the player. Like, look at Dave Szymanski. He's basically, he's an everyman. He just went and did Dusk and won so many people over. He's very close to the community, and everything that New Bloods does. We are great fans of New Bloods at Hyperstrange. Everything that New Bloods does is really connecting with their audience. They are in constant dialogue, and so is Running with Scissors crowd. The Running with Scissors Discord is such a lively place. It's such an active community, and I think that this dialogue is what really stands apart the modern retro shooter and the corporate, I would say, stuff. Even if you look like at stuff like the recent Doom games, yeah, they are doing lots of stuff to connect with the community, but you don't get to hang out with the guys who made the game. Not really.
To actually push back a little bit, like Hugo, for a AAA developer working for a giant corporation, is very active in like going into forums and chatting with people, giving feedback.
Yeah, and talking to people on Reddit and doing MAS and stuff like that, and actually taking it into account. But that's one guy out of the hundreds who made the game, and I think that's what really sets the boomer shooter apart from all the other games. It's coming out of the community, I think. And
I think that,
yeah,
if I may,
it's your show. Go ahead.
No, it's your show. You've been listening. That's my line. That's supposed to be what I say. I say that like every episode. Man, Wojtek did too much homework. I was just going to say that you're talking about the fact that the days of talking to the community manager like directly are kind of gone. And I think part of it is like what you're already kind of going toward. I think is the smaller companies in general is just not as many people. It's something like 3D. I mean, 3D Realms is growing pretty substantially.
Yeah,
but New Blood or whatever. If you want to talk to the CEO of New Blood, you go on Twitter and you're almost guaranteed to get a response. I think that precedent was set, back in the 90s with 3D Realms and Apogee, and to even go a bit further with id Software, because you could pop into a server and expect to see John Romero playing the game pretty much any time. So I think you're right. I think there's a culture around this kind of game and the fans of this game that expect that sort of thing. But please continue on your side of the story.
I wasn't a part of the team that envisioned Elderborn. It was just two guys. Well, they found Hyperstrange to make Elderborn back in 2015. So if I was going to go all dramatic, I would say that on the day of the solar eclipse 2015, Hyperstrange was born, because that's actually what happened. The moment that they were signing the papers to make it a company was the moment of the total sun eclipse. But what motivated them was Dark Souls and Doom. Well, Quake and Doom. And they knew that they wanted to make an action game. They knew that they wanted to be over the top 80s style with like really heavy Conan vibes, like stuff like that. Like Robert E. Howard penned the script for the game.
Is there a guy on the team named Robert E. Howard, or are you talking about the guy that wrote Conan?
No. I said it was like Robert E. Howard, but that would be amazing.
Okay,
That would be
okay.
amazing to have a Robert E. Howard on the team. I think that they very often said that their direct inspiration for the game was actually Dark Forces, the Star Wars shooter, the classic Star Wars shooter, because
Yeah.
of how the levels were constructed, and how colorful it was, and how action-packed it was. So they thought that they want to make a game as complex and as engaging as Dark Forces, as colorful as My Little Pony, and He-Man and Conan vibes. And I met them when I was a biz dev manager at a publishing house called Klabater. And we were hunting for new titles in Cologne. So I've met two guys from Warsaw in Cologne during Gamescom, and they presented me their game. And I was like, oh yes, we have to publish that. We really need to publish that. And we started talking, and then the guy that founded the publishing company, Klabater, whom I really respect and I really can get behind most of his business decisions. At the moment, he said that no, this is too big for us. This is going to be too expensive. This is going to drag too long because that's only two guys making the game. He was right on all the words. It dragged long, and they couldn't make it in a team of two. And he decided to pass on the title. And soon after, I quit my job there. And after just a short break, I met up with the Hyperstrange guys, and we started talking, and decided that I would write Elderborn and help with marketing. And now I'm a part of the core team, and I'm actually the head of publishing at Hyperstrange. But it was Elderborn that won me over, because I really saw the game and thought this got real potential. Like this is Dark Souls but Doom. This is exactly what I wanted to exist. Elderborn took a long time to finish, and we had a publisher at some point, and then we split ways with them because they didn't really do anything for us, and I convinced the guys that we should publish Elderborn ourselves because I was convinced that I know how to do it. And the one thing that we got from our publisher was a bit of a trouble because they really wanted to do early access. So Hyperstrange did early access for Elderborn in 2018, and it was terrible. Like the sales were non-existent. The audience thought the game was half-baked, and there was too little of the game to speak of. And it didn't sell well in early access, and got a lot of flack from the community for not being what they imagined it would be. But that's where the greatness of Elderborn began, because having all that community feedback, having people trash it in all sorts of way, really helped the game to grow, and we took cues from everything that people told us. So it took another year and a half, almost, to go through all the early access and to emerge from early access on January 2020. And emerged victorious, I might say, because in that time we've made the game still not perfect. It still isn't perfect, and it was even less perfect then. but it was good enough to sell pretty decent at the point, and we got even more feedback because more people played it. And at that point, I'm sure you know Jimin Lives, the YouTuber, whom we really, really like, and he was kind of rooting for Elderborn, and he played it when we launched in January, and then he messaged me on Twitter saying, "Dude, I'm not going to do a video Elderborn just yet, because I would need to trash it, and I don't want to break your limbs. I don't want to end your company." And he just wrote a little review on Steam, which is way, way less impactful, and he gave us his feedback. And based on that feedback, and the feedback from the rest of the community, we've made a huge update in a couple of months later, improving every aspect of the game, from the UI to core gameplay controls. Like, people were very, very much annoyed with blocking, queuing, and stuff like that, and some of attack queuing. And in a melee game, it's like do or die, and we didn't get it right immediately. We thought we did, because we are following the traditional Dark Souls style of fighting. And it turned out it didn't work very well in first-person perspective. So based on that feedback, we've changed it. We've changed a lot of things. And a couple months later, when Jimin actually did go back to the game and published his video, it was like another launch. So we've actually had better numbers on that than on the actual launch. And the game lives on, and we've just had another featuring on Steam. We were the daily deal on the Steam main page like 2 days ago. The game still really, really surprises people. Because of how niche it is, we don't really do much of a widespread marketing. Because
Right.
you can go with the game to the masses, but it's a first person melee game, so it's really not for everyone, and we know that. But every time someone who enjoys such things, like someone who played a lot of Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, or even all this like Dybard Sword or stuff like that, when someone discovers Elderborn, someone like that discovers Elderborn, they fell in love like immediately. And we got a lot of people saying that, "Oh my god, this is a hidden gem on Steam." We prefer for it to be the hidden gem on Steam, while we give Postal Brain Damage all the spotlight.
It's like a little engine that could story, because it's not something that a lot of people believed could ever be anything.
Yeah.
Just right from the get-go, that this game is like way too ambitious for a small team. No fucking way that will ever happen. Like, that's just my initial.
Yeah, it started with a team of 2, then evolved into a team of 10 at the end. It was like 10 people working on the game. That's really huge and ambitious. And we still do think that it could use more content, and we're going to get there in due time, because that's always going to be our first game. The prodigious son, and yeah, it's a wild game. It really is a wild game, and I really do hope that it in time it achieves the status of like a cult classic, that not everyone knows about, but those who do really, really have fond memories of it.
And when you're talking about your marketing campaign for it being, just kind of leave it to the audience to find it, it worked, because the way that I actually found it was when you guys did I think it was like a 4-pack Steam sale with Zan of Hedon and Bruno He was doing Nightmare Reaper, and I can't remember who else. But your game really stood out because I mean their games.
It was Project Warlock.
Yeah, Project Warlock.
Hidden Project Warlock. Yeah.
And I'd already been a fan of all three of those games, and I'd never heard of your game at all. And when I saw it, it stood out because this is so wildly different than all the others. But I was looking at the graphics and everything, and I'm just like, why is this not like a AAA game, or like why are they doing this sale with these guys? And nothing against any of those three. I'm huge fans of all three of those games. And Zan,
great games.
Zan and Bruno are like my best pals. But yeah, it just stood out so much. It's like, this is incredibly beautiful graphically, and also because of the theme, it's not really something you see every day. You don't see, other than Conan the Barbarian, you don't see a lot of games that kind of mimic that style anymore. And I was totally fascinated. And when I did finally get around to playing it, I was kind of blown away by a lot of the stuff that I've already mentioned. But I was expecting to walk into this and it be like a very Dark Souls-esque in terms of combat. And luckily I didn't see that version of the game. So it was awesome. I love the brutal smashing, and like I love the way that the different weapons kind of change your speed and movement. And you guys really nailed it, I think, with the way that dynamic plays out for the player.
Do you know the game? I don't remember the studio. It's a Spanish studio. It's a classic game called Severance, Blade of Darkness.
I've only heard the name. I'm not familiar with the game itself.
Okay, so in Severance, it precedes Dark Souls by a couple of years, and even Demon Souls, and even the game that came before it, Knights, whatever, I don't remember. But you would explore this ancient ruins, and it's full of enemies, and you will find weapons, and every weapon has its particular moveset, and it changes your playstyle if you switch from a sword to an axe or stuff like that. We went after that. We wanted to have all those different movesets to alter the playstyle, and ideally we wanted people to switch the weapons as they go. But most of people default to one weapon for most of the runs, and that's okay too.
The right way to do it. And I don't know if that was by accident or not, but like so the thing with Doom Eternal is that you absolutely must use every weapon and all that kind of thing. And that's always been true.
It's forced on you.
It's always been true in Doom that there are certain weapons that are better in certain encounters, but having the freedom to choose, I think a lot of people liked it prior to Doom Eternal's release. And that was like one of the criticisms that people who don't, which are few and far between. Most people really love that game, but the people that didn't like it were like, well, I want to have the freedom. And in your game, I had the freedom to play it the way that you intended, or and what I did most of the time was run around with the spear, because I like moving really fast. And to me, that's just good game design. That's players, I think they want to feel free to do whatever they want,
Yeah. And I made sure to add some taste to the exploration. Like you can find all those bits of the story, and to my dismay, most people think that there's no story in Elderborn, and there's those who complain that, well, compared to Dark Souls, it doesn't have that story that's unfolding. Well, it does if you follow it closely, but then again, every now and then there's a person who tweets or writes a Steam review saying, that game had a pretty decent story that unfolded before me as I explored. And that really makes my day every time.
I mean, with the epic cutscenes and the beautiful artwork that you guys did for that, and all the, I guess, voiceover stuff that goes into that, it's kind of not what I expected. I thought it was great. I just was not prepared for it when it happened. I was like, oh man, because again, I was just thinking like, okay, this game was like a small team. They're not going to have stuff like that. It's going to be very much Dark Souls like, and I was so wrong. And all you have to do is pay attention. But for most FPS players, it's like, oh, cutscene, sweet. I'm going to go take a piss. I'm going to get a cup of coffee, smoke my cigarette, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think that story is Elderborn is as much substantial as in porn movies. So it's not really it's not really necessary, but it gave me something to do. Plus, I really well. I went to the founders of Hyperstrange, Łukasz and Przemek, and we sat down and talked. What would be the best approach to launch Elderborn, to promote it and to launch it successfully? I already knew I loved that game. I already knew that I wanted to work with them. I already saw the potential, and I knew that the only way I could really convincingly talk about Elderborn and spread the awareness among Doom players and Dark Souls players, because those two strangely overlapping groups, that was our core target. I knew that if I wanted to talk with them about Elderborn, I would need to be able to go there and say, "Hey, I'm one of the guys making Elderborn, and I wanted to tell you about the game," because that's what I believe would be the best approach to promoting it. So I made sure that I can, say the truth, saying that, and boy, did it really pay off. Really, Hyperstrange really took off after Elderborn. We were successful in convincing Running with Scissors that they should allow us to make a POSTAL game, and that's hugely because of Elderborn. And there's a lot of stuff happening in Hyperstrange nowadays. There are, like, if you go to our Steam publisher page, there's already a nice couple of games, and that's only like half of it that we are going to announce soon. So it's because we are not only producing games now, but also publishing. And still, the Doom audience and the Dark Souls audience is still our core target in a way, mostly because of what place we want to take in the game development community. We want to be id Software, but just all those years later, I think we do have the same passion. I think we have the same ambition to really bring that, heavy metal vibe and all that badassy to it. That's a little bit, rough on the edges, but so very enjoyable. And that's why we are always interested in all stuff Doom related. That's why you can see that we are about to launch a game called Jupiter Hell, which is a roguelike game, but it's basically Doom. It's by Kornel Kisielewicz, who famously made the Doom roguelike, which is no longer called Doom roguelike because Bethesda came hard on his ass at one point. Even though it was a free game, they didn't like it to hold the Doom name, even as a fun project. So he went like, okay, I'm going to make a sequel and call it something different, and that's how he came up with Jupiter Hell. And when he launched his Kickstarter, it was the only ever campaign backed by John Carmack. It was the only gaming campaign that Carmack ever backed. And they even had some interaction on Twitter, and it may or may not be the truth, but it was hinted that Doom RPG that Carmack famously made was a little bit inspired by Doom roguelike, because Doom roguelike it's like 2002, I believe. And Jupiter Hell is its direct,
spiritual successor.
Spiritual
successor, exactly.
Okay.
So Jupiter Hell is actually a game almost 20 years in the making, you could say. And it's in early access since 2019, and it's launching in full in August, on August 5th. And really, if you ever wondered how would Doom play as a turn-based tactics roguelike game, that's it. That's pretty much it. So everything Doom related always inspires us, and we really like to cater to that crowd.
Since we're already talking about Jupiter Hell, I did not realize you guys were publishing that.
It took some convincing. I know Cornell. I know Cornell since 2000s, early 2000s, and he never wanted a publisher. Well, if we are talking indies, Cornell is the core of indie game development, and it's partially that he wanted to get closer to our crowd, because Elderborn players might be interested in stuff like Jupiter Hell, but mostly it's because we really do enjoy the same vibes. We do really understand each other, and we are already doing stuff for him as a publisher that he didn't imagine were possible for an indie game. So we are making his life a lot easier in those final months, and what we are getting in return is Jupiter Hell in our catalog, which I'm very proud of, because it's really a hell of a game, and it fits so well with our catalog. I'm so happy that I managed to convince Cornell to do that. But you're going to see in August that this is going to be like the next point of interest for Doom fans, maybe even to an extent to RPG fans, because it's a really in-depth roguelike game with all the mechanics you would expect from a roguelike game, a classic roguelike game, not a roguelite game, but with graphics. And it has Mark Meir voicing the character. So you have basically Doom guy in a tactics game voiced by Commander Shepard. So it's a bit of a gem.
Yeah. What we're seeing a lot, I think, lately is indies that obviously they see publishers as almost the enemy, which in some cases they can be. Hopefully, you guys have built the reputation of not being that way, and that's great. And there's, we've already pretty much mentioned all the other companies that kind of fall into that category anyway.
No, we didn't talk about Devolver, not one bit.
I guess you're right. We did not mention Devolver, but now we have. But what they don't necessarily need the money, even, especially if they, they use Kickstarter, Patreon, stuff like that. They don't even really need help in a lot of cases, because a lot of these guys and a lot of the newer technology can knock out a lot of shit with just the tools that they have to make a pretty interstellar looking game and playing game. But marketing is the biggest thing that I think a lot of publishers have to offer. There's a huge difference between Ultra Kill, the indie game, and Ultra Kill, the new blood, game. Sure. And it makes a huge difference just to have that branding and to have, someone else handle your marketing for you. And you want, I was about to say Dave Oshry is a marketing genius. He just fails his way to success as a marketer.
That's the best way to say it, I think.
And the same thing with Mike J. This exact same, I was just telling this to Alex Pixie in chat. We're getting ready for Realms Deep and everything, and I'm like, I don't understand how the fuck these two motherfuckers can, sorry, too many F words, can be the people they are. And it's all charisma. It's just hyper charismatic, over the top. They're like wrestling characters, and I love them. Yeah. But the question ultimately that I wanted to ask was what, because you are the marketer here, what is it that you guys feel that you bring to the table for any indie developer who's interested in working with Hyperstrange?
Well, switching to my full-on marketing mode, I do believe that it's not the marketing that sells games. The games sell games. You don't think of the New Blood catalog as, those guys who make those oldie crazy marketing stunts and have that, very, very endearing line of communication you think about when you're thinking New Blood. You think with titles, you think New Blood, you think Dusk, you think Amid Evil, stuff like that, I think that the only successful way to position yourself for sales is to be a part of a catalog of games that your crowd enjoys. So we took it from Elderborn and went from that. Then we've made another small shooter to extend that catalog, and then we started to talk to people who I thought would fall into the same categories. And I can already see it working because our publishing efforts are, well, maybe they are not, yet on New Blood's level, like New Blood's all those years ago, at the same point as Hyperstrange. But I think we're going to get there because I know all those fantastic titles that I already have, in the catalog, ready to announce, and I know that our crowd, our players, are going to really enjoy those types of games. I think that marketing only gets you as far as awareness, but being aware of the game and really getting invested in it, indies don't have that budget, because you would really need to put your game on every corner, and not just the logo, not just the poster, not just the key art, but actual bits from the game, like I think maybe 2K is doing with Borderlands. They plastered all the internet with bits and pieces of Pandora and all the other planets. You could really immerse yourself in the game before purchasing it, and it takes a huge marketing budget to do just that. If we were to do the same thing for, let's say, Elderborn, we could only put one guy on the corner and yell, "Hey everyone, the city in Elderborn is called Your Mom. It's a joke about your mom. Isn't it funny?" And that's pretty much all we could do on the budget. So that's true for all indies, I think. So to be able to position yourself among other games that people that your crowd enjoys, it's worth its weight in gold. But we do have marketing budget as well, so we can extend those efforts. So we can do a little bit of both, just enough awareness, and then convincing people that okay, this is a game of the type that I would enjoy. And it's a little bit of I'm not Mike J, I'm not Dave Oshry, and I know those guys, and I also know like people like Brian Fargo, because I worked with him for some time. I was his publicist in Eastern Europe, and I know that it takes a lot of charisma to really be the face of your catalog and be the face of your game, and it's 1 in a million. But even those guys always try to keep a profile for all the things that they are putting out there, to make it recognizable, to like imprint themselves on it. And like I said, Brian Fargo, he's an indie at heart. Right now, In Exile was acquired by Microsoft, as you probably know. So he's, for the first time in years, he doesn't have to do Kickstarter when he launches a new production. And I was talking to him like 2 weeks or so ago, and he was like, "Man, I'm so excited for the game I'm making. I'm so excited. I can't tell you what it is yet, but I'm so excited." And I could only respond with, "Dude, I know exactly what you mean. I'm so excited by the games we are making and publishing right now. I can tell you that. I can tell you what we are making, except for Postal and some other stuff. But boy, is it exciting to work on games that you personally enjoy." And I think that's what's happening with Dave and what's happening with Fred, because those guys are really into the games that they are publishing. And Mike is like the embodiment of Postal for me. Except shooting people, probably, allegedly.
He invents their personas. Like, I mean, I talked a lot about this with each time that I interviewed both of them, and like they do have something of a thing that they turn on for the marketing, but like that's their real person. It's like I said about wrestling characters, Stone Cold Steve Austin is just Steve Williams turned up to 11. He's still that guy. He's just not quite that extreme, and I think that resonates, and I think that's part of why the fans love them so much, is because they feel a personal connection to them, and I think that's probably the strongest marketing tool that I know of, is making that connection. Because once they've decided, you have this catalog of games and they're all awesome, and you have a community that's communicating with us and they can depend on you for that, it makes a huge difference. Something you said earlier about how you have to let the catalog speak for itself. It reminded me of a interview I heard with Paul Stanley from Kiss. This is probably a really old interview, but he said,
"Oh yeah,
we had the makeup and we had the the pyrotechnics and the great live show and everything, but if the songs didn't kick ass and sell records, then we would have just been a joke. We would be a bunch of grown men in makeup. But because the songs, because of Detroit Rock City and all that shit, we stuck around. We were able to like actually turn it into something. And I think that really sums up kind of your point there. It's so important to have the substance there, because I mean, there's a lot of AAA companies right now that are plastering games all over the place. Like you said, they're on every corner, and their games actually don't have any substance because they're these like giant corporate soulless tweaked things. And that's not true of all AAAs, of course, but it is a growing problem.
No, sure.
And I don't know. I think what you're describing and what you're doing it's what makes companies like Hyperstrange, like 3 Realms, Running with Scissors, blah, 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 all the way up and down the line, Night Dive Studios, like that's what makes these companies so cool and dependable for the fans.
Yeah. And it's a lot about I don't like to use the word creativity, because it's a buzzword at this point, but the people that are really successful at making games are the creative types, are those people willing to experiment and base their decisions sometimes on a whim.
Yeah, it's not
Excel.
A boardroom of executives that are looking at graphs of like recent sales and all that. Like, nah, that's not what's going on here. It's like, this is what I want to make. And it's something you were kind of getting into as well, like working on the game that I want to make because I like it.
And people like to play those games for that reason, because they feel that someone's soul was put into it. That's why I think that many game developers that are successful kind of think of themselves as rock stars. And in a way, if they are successful, it makes them rock stars, because they get fans and they get all the rock star treatment. And I think it's very codependent. The stardom, and the success of the game. If you don't feel like a star making your game, it's probably not going to, speak to the player as much as it could.
It's a very
American
entrepreneurial thing when we have this idea here that anyone could come here, and if you work hard enough and you try hard enough, you'll be successful. And that's not necessarily always true, but I mean that's the quote, the American dream, to kind of put it that way. And that's true in many other countries as well, but that's just like the phrase that people use that sums it up. And what you're talking about with someone who just takes a risk and tries something new, when they do become successful, and that's actually few and far between. Not there's there's probably 99 failures for every success. But
yeah, sure.
The fact that they did, like when you get that moment where you're like, I made it, my little idea became something, and we're fed that story all the time. People love I was nothing, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak starting off in their garage, and same thing with Bill Gates, and everybody, loves that story. Same thing with id Software, just a couple of dudes that liked computers, and like John Romero was slaving away making games and publishing them in magazines. Carmack was just like a nerd, like just banging away on his keyboard all day long, coding weird things. And then they made millions of dollars and drove around in Ferraris after that. And there's something about that kind of story that really resonates with people. I don't think that should be your expectation, though. Yeah. I get what you're saying about like you want to feel the success and be a rock star, but I don't think you should enter into indie game dev with the idea that you're going to be a millionaire as a result of that. Maybe just like I'm able to pay my bills.
I disagree. I disagree. I think that if you are going to really commit to indie game development, you need to get in that mindset.
Okay.
You really need to shoot for the stars, I think. Accept failure, accept many failures, probably. Even know when to stop, but if you don't want to be a star, if you just want to make, ends meet and pay the bills, maybe games isn't the way for you to go, because there are already too many games. We only need those exceptionals, I think. And if you ask any of us at Hyperstrange, what is the ultimate goal of Hyperstrange, they are not going to tell you, I want to work in game dev and make games because it pays the bills. Everyone is going to tell you, we are going to be a part of the game dev Valhalla. And I think that's really, it's not even about the ambition. It's about, people who want to achieve that stardom in game dev are those who make exceptional games. That's what I think. And sometimes people don't expect it, and they suddenly become rock stars because of the talent and because of hard work, but because it's always a lot of hard work. But you can, hammer away at your little game for a couple of years and launch it and sell dozens of copies and just, get depressed and resign. But if you spend those years hammering at your game, thinking that, okay, this is going to be huge, not just thinking, okay, this is going to pay my bills, I think there's a better chance that you will really succeed at it, that people will see that you've put your soul into it. Like, this is your everything. I don't know, maybe it's not so, but I think that back in the days of Carmack and Romero, that was the only option, for guys like that. You could endlessly make those little monthly games for soft disk, and that would pay your bills, but you would end up with nothing. Or maybe switch to a proper IT job. Or, or you could be working at Dwango and be Mike Wilson and decide to, drop from Microsoft and do Devolver later. And it's not because I want to pay my bills. No, it's because you have that rockstar gene in you.
I think it's I think we're kind of talking along the same parallel line. We're just like kind of on a different wavelength here. I don't think that you shouldn't absolutely want to be successful, or you don't want your game to be like the awesomest game ever.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the watermark for success has to be, a Ferrari and a giant mansion, right? For a lot of people, they
No, it could also be, a Lamborghini and a very nice cottage.
it could just be, it
Or
could
a
just be
chateau.
like, I don't have to worry. I can do what I want to do. I can make the games that I want to make and reach the people that I want to reach and tell the stories that I want to tell,
Yeah.
while not having to do something else that is soul crushing. Like, if you can, and I'm not just saying pay the bills, but I mean, if you can afford to have a decent house
Okay.
and a car that
Mhm.
gets you from point A to point B and spend all day long doing what you love, that's success. That's way better than working a fucking,
Yeah.
an industry job and then on the side coming home and have to slave away trying to make your thing maybe one day be a success, and then, selling 12 copies on Steam to negative reviews and like, oh shit, well, that was my whole life I just gave away.
Yeah. Yeah, you made me think about Luke Pope. Because Luke's games are exceptional in every way. Obra Dinn, Papers, Please, all of his games are really exceptional. But does he think of himself as a rock star? I don't think so. And are those games rock epics? No, they are more like those indie recordings somewhere in the in the club, stuff like that. But he does exceptional things because he does them his own way, I think. So yeah, so maybe but not necessarily stardom, but a bit of a, to an extent, unwillingness to compromise, I think.
I think that I think you're totally right, and I kind of want to draw the analogy back to just software development in general, right? So if you want to be really rich making software, right, the surefire way to do it is just make something so kick-ass and revolutionary, like, and that could be your dream project. And then you get to a certain point, and then Google approaches you, and they say, like, we're willing to pay like some scary, dark, smoky room full of executives amount of money for it. And you can do that. You can make that decision right then and there to sell your soul to the. I'm not saying Google is the devil, but I mean, like, sell your soul, sell your project with the pretty reasonable expectation that they're going to bury it because it was probably going to be competing with something that they were already working on, right? And that's, for a lot of people, they're like, I'm taking that fucking deal. I want to be a millionaire. It's a pretty easy choice. But for some people, they're like, no, I need to have my project out there with my name on it, and it has to, become what I want it to be. And to me, that's like more beautiful than, I became a millionaire because I sold some shit to a larger corporation. Because that's the rock star lifestyle. If you don't get the recognition, I mean, just because you have $1 million doesn't mean anyone gives a shit about you or sees what you can do. So it's like, it's kind of like climbing a mountain, that could be success too. Climbing Mount Everest. I climb Mount Everest. Like, no one gives a shit, but for you, you did it. You accomplished your goal, and it's about your goals, and I think that we're both, again, talking on the same parallel line. It's just a matter of what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
So with all that said, when you're a millionaire, what kind of car are you going to buy?
I always joke around that I'm not really a petrol head, and to an extent that I drive a Kia Ceed, and I'm perfectly happy with it. And I don't think I'm going to switch anytime soon. But I always joked around that I don't care what I drive until I can afford a 1963 Chevrolet Corvette. And we'll see at the point when I can afford a 1963 Chevrolet Corvette, if I care. And I suspect I still won't care. I just want to drive something that, drives me to my space shuttle so I can launch off.
If that's what you call success, that's fine. I was interviewing Locktar one time. It's a while ago. It was like one of the earlier episodes of In the Keep, and I asked him, like, what kind of car, if you had a dream, would it be? And I was thinking it was going to be like, Lamborghini or some shit. And he's like, oh, like a Nissan something. I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Something I can, because he likes working on cars. He doesn't want to pay someone like $100,000 every time he needs a service. He's like, no, I want to like build it myself and all that. So I get it.
Nice. I can get behind that. Yeah, well, the problem with cars, they can only take you someplace else on Earth, and I want to get off. So yeah, I really want to see the stars. So if that's possible at any point of my life, I'm going out there, and that's going to be like, okay, that's my success. I can see the Earth from here.
So let's get back into your stuff. So I did want to like touch a little bit more on Jupiter Hell. Like, so what can we expect differently from it and then other, you've described it as like, it's a roguelite, but it's also Doom. And first and foremost, the most striking thing is the visuals. I mean, the lighting in this thing is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm curious at what's going to make it different.
You have seen nothing yet, sir. You have seen nothing yet. It's, again, it's an indie thing, but most of indie stuff nowadays is either made in Unity or Unreal Engine, with some additions of like Game Maker and stuff. Not Jupiter Hell. Jupiter Hell is a proprietary engine made by Conrad from scratch. So the excellent lighting effects that you see in Jupiter Hell are made from scratch by Cornell, and he's not done yet making them. And there's a huge graphical overhaul coming before the full launch. And we're talking like major shit. So the game is going to, go up a tier or two. And that's pretty much, what makes Jupiter Hell stand apart from all the other roguelikes, because there's plenty of roguelikes, like even the most classic ones, like Ancient Domains of Mystery, have been relaunched as graphical roguelikes recently, and there are new ones coming. And well, Jupiter Hell is the visual roguelike. You really get the environment, and it's a 3D environment, so at some point, maybe Cornell decides to, go first perspective or whatever. We'll see. Or maybe even VR. We'll see. He's a little bit unpredictable, so you can expect many, different things from Jupiter Hell at some point. But now he's focusing on finishing up the content, putting the fine polish on things, and really bringing the 1.0 on August. So there's still a lot of because we now get monthly updates, monthly content updates for Jupiter Hell. And when I read the changelogs that Cornell sends me, I'm always like, how is this even possible? Like, as an artist on the team, but all of the writing, all of the scenario, all of the functionalities, all of the gameplay stuff, it's just one guy. And okay, he's been at it for 20 years now, because Jupiter Hell is what became of Doom Roguelike, and Doom Roguelike is actually what became of, well, Doom Roguelike wasn't the first roguelike that Cornell made. The first one was actually Aliens Roguelike, which is still out there, and you can play it, and it's amazing. And it already, back in early 2000s, it already has, passed some limits on what people thought that was possible in roguelikes, because you would get, it was ASCII art, but it was fully animated. Like in Doom roguelike, you can launch ASCII art rocket from your rocket launcher, and you will see the changing colors, the explosion, everything in real time. Pretty much like in Jupiter Hell. It's turn-based, but it's full of animation. So, because of this extremely long life cycles of those games and how much stuff is put in it, it's really, sometimes it's just unbelievable to see how much content goes in each of those updates, and how much Kernel is willing to experiment even at this point, to put like game-changing abilities in the game. And again, it's early access, and he has a very active community. Like at this point, there is a Jupiter Hell channel on Hyperstrange server Discord, but it's like 1/10. Our whole Discord would fit in one room of Cornell's Discord for Jupiter Hell, and the community that he's got going is huge and so very active, and they are so very invested in Jupiter Hell. So again, even if he decides to do something really possibly game breaking, like change stuff that is like a part of the core gameplay, he gets instant feedback, and he gets opinions from hundreds of people. So that's how Jupiter Hell is evolving for years and years and years, and I'm so very happy that it's going to come to fruition under the Hyperstrange brand. But Jupiter Hell would have made it on its own to an extent. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to give him an additional platform, But most of the time I'm just amazed by how amazing this and extensive this game is.
It's a beautifully symbiotic kind of relationship that you're building with anybody that you work with right now. Like, it's kind of the same thing that's going on with you and running with Scissors, or so like you're elevating their brand by making probably what's going to be the best Postal game ever made, like objectively the best, because it won't suck, which is pretty low watermark.
I'm just like, we are discussing the slogan, the least sucking game of the worst series ever.
Yeah. And
it does have a sound.
Obviously, I'm just throwing shit at Mike, but you're elevating their brand, they're elevating your brand, and the same thing goes for Jupiter Hell. Like maybe he would have made 50,000 sales or something like that in the first year without you, but if he makes 100,000 sales because of working with you, then it all works out. You guys look like a more legitimate publisher because you're publishing games. He looks like a more legitimate game because he has a publisher that's kick-ass and has this other catalog of awesome games. It's I think you're hitting the nail on the head. This goes right back to what you said earlier about marketing. Like, it just grow that catalog and show that you guys are.
It's all about relationships, really. It's all about relationships. If you are not willing to consider the developer you are working with as a partner, mm-hmm. if you are only looking after the money, that's that's a very one-sided deal. And we are really convinced that it's about giving each other the boost, because we are getting stuff from Jupiter Hell as well. We are getting more recognition because of Jupiter Hell. Just like you said, we look more like a full-grown ass publisher, and Jupiter Hell is really getting stuff that it wouldn't be possible without the additional funding, and Cornell is getting more time to actually work on the game, because he, on top of everything that he already does, he also did all the PR. So now he can, just focus on the game. And as you said, running with scissors really does a lot of a lot of impact on our place in the gaming industry, because we don't want to lean on running with scissors, even though we could if we wanted to, because there are really they're really happy with us, and they're very good natured people.
Yep.
Despite the all the roughness. Don't tell Mike that I said that.
I'm sure he will not listen to this. I'm quite certain he will not.
Yeah, that's why. Please don't tell him. So when he told the audience of his own podcast how Postal Brain Damage came to be, the story was, we took Hyperstrange, put the dick in their throat, and came really hard, and that's why they got impregnated with Postal Brain Damage. And on the one side you have a story like that told on his podcast, and on the other side we really feel that we have all the support we could dream of, and that they are really partners for us. This is a very this is a healthy relationship that I wouldn't expect it to be.
It's a to put it in a way that Mike would understand, it's a 69, like he's coming in your mouth, you're also coming in his mouth. Like, let's just be honest here.
Perfectly true. Yeah.
I guess
so. That's the key to every good relationship between gaming industry partners, whether it is two studios working together and maybe a developer and a publisher, like good old fashioned balanced 69ing. That's the key.
I'm gonna have my wife listen to this. I'm kidding. She definitely wouldn't want to. To get back to Jupiter Hell a little bit, another thing that I wanted to know is, when are we going to get away from this whole Space Marine thing? Because they're not called Space Marines anymore; they're called Guardians, right? And I know this is like totally a Doom play. Like that's the what boomer shooters and 90s game people expect is the Space Marine. Like, we got to have that, the unnamed Space Marine. But one thing that you mentioned earlier was we have this character, the Colonel, who is being voiced by an epic voice actor and everything. And I'm kind of curious, because I've talked a lot about this on the show. Are you planning on kind of building an IP out of this, like that character can be translated into different types of games, but still kind of based in that reality, that universe?
There's no end to Jupiter Hell.
Okay.
Like, this isn't one shot. It's an it's an endless stream. Jupiter Hell updates. It's like Jupiter Hell, when it debuted on Steam, it was like version 0.23. That doesn't mean that there wasn't like 100 playable versions before that. So the version that we currently have is 0.9.9. So the next version is not going to be version 1.0 yet. It's going to be 0.9.9.1, and so on and so on and so on. And then after 1.0, there are just going to be more updates. And it's as long as it makes Cornell happy, and as long as it makes the players happy, Jupiter Hell isn't going to end. which doesn't mean that Cornell doesn't think about making other games as well. And well, we've been talking through some stuff, and he's got really cool ideas what to do next. But I'm very, very certain that he's never going to abandon Jupiter Hell, the game that he's been doing for almost 20 years now.
Well, what I'm kind of getting at is that, so let's take Postal Dude, for example, right? He's been in lots of different games, but for like really the first time, we're seeing him in a game that is not the same kind of game that Postal, 1, 2, and 3 were, right? And to be fair, I guess Postal 1 was sort of a different kind of game than 2 and 4 and 3, and that it's, not a 3D game. But
what is this Postal? What is this Postal 3 mentioning? Because
lips are sealed. But you guys are making Postal Dude into a whole different type of game, and we saw this. Devolver has been really cool with doing this with Serious Sam, and that there's the Serious Sam main series, and then there's
even before that the first one. I think the first successful Devolver treatment was Shadow Warrior, another Warsaw-based studio, our older brothers in Flying Wild Hog. What they did with Shadow Warrior under Devolver was that kind of makeover.
Right. They took
thinking about
like an IP that was a classic, just straightforward boomer shooter, and turned it into a modern looter shooter kind of game. And
another IP that the people at GOG, the players at GOG, were absolutely raging about when we were launching Shadow Warrior, the first modern Shadow Warrior on GOG. It instantly got like 1-star reviews, like before people even had the chance to play it. Like, this isn't Shadow Warrior. We saw the trailer. It looks nothing like Shadow Warrior. Why would you do such a sacrilege to our favorite brand from the past? Like, and then so many people just changed their minds when they played the game, and to turn it, like 180 for so many people, it really took. Because that really wasn't a cult IP.
Right.
It had some following, but Shadow Warrior, okay, who is this Asian Duke Nukem? And where Shadow Warrior is now, it's all thanks to Flying Wild Hog, and that's not the same with Postal, because Postal Dude is very much alive and kicking everywhere. And it's like a real renaissance for Postal. We're a part of it, a large part, and still growing, because people are really getting excited for Postal. Actually, I've been talking to Vince yesterday, and he was like, a very odd thing happened to me yesterday at the supermarket. He went to get his groceries, and he had this Postal 4 bandana.
I think I wiped my beer off his desk with that bandana.
Maybe, probably. So he had it on him, and the cashier was like, "Oh, dude, you've got something to do with the Postal games?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I do Postal." "Oh, cool. Do you know when Brain Damage comes out?" So a random guy, at the register asked Vince, when is Postal Brain Damage coming out, and that's huge for us. We've got some recognition from not just the core fans, but random people that know of Postal. But it's not like we are redesigning the whole IP. Far from that. This is a spin-off. We pretty much get a blank slate for everything, because it all happens in a dream. So we get to do whatever, actually.
I'm kind of fearing the day, like, because I live in Tucson just like they do, and like that I walk into the supermarket and some guy's like, "Hey, you're the guy that killed Mike J," and it could go one of two ways. Like, I'm really scared because it could either be like, "I'm gonna kill you right now," or it could be, "Thank you so much, you did the work."
Yeah, good on you. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, man, it is amazing because I think a lot of people are at this point far more into the, like, I'm rooting for Postal. I've had many people tell me directly like that they were never really interested in the Postal series until they saw the Brain Damage trailer, because they're like that. I mean, you know, I always like the idea of it, you know, but I just don't like that kind of open world task based game. But they do love first person shooters, and not to say that Postal doesn't have first person shooter elements, but you get what I'm saying. It's a different type of thing. And what I was getting at earlier was, you know, like we were talking about Shadow Warrior and Serious Sam, because Serious Sam had, again, the main series, but it also has like Double D, and it has Tornamental. Like they really successfully made that character into more than just its main series. And I think the same is also true of Duke Nukem. You know, Duke Nukem started off as a platformer, became Duke Nukem 3D. Then there was the Forever thing, but there's a lot of other cool, like, you know, platformers and everything in between. And was something you mentioned earlier when you're kind of describing Jupiter Hell is that, you know, perhaps we'll see like the VR version or the first person version and all this kind of thing. And I'm wondering, like, are you planning to do that with that character, or are you guys even considering that?
Well, the first and the last word always comes from Cornell, because that's his IP. We can make a case with Cornell if we think that something is, you know, sellable and attractive to people, but it's his call. So he's a little bit like Carmack. If he considers it a challenge and something fun to do, he might do it.
You just got to ask the right way. You got to like talk him into thinking it was his idea.
I don't really want to talk him into anything.
I get you.
Because I really trust his judgment on that. But yeah. If I actually, I already did put a bit of a challenge on Cornell, because we are doing something cool for the game that's not really compatible with the engine that he's made. So he has to figure out how to incorporate it into the game.
I'm sure you'll have many opportunities as a publisher, you know, you'll see like, oh, this is because not every game's about, you know, a character, and even Elderborn, like you have a main character, but it's not like that's the selling point of the game. It's not like Duke Nukem where the personality is like what kind of makes you attached to it. So, but
quick question: did you play as a male Barian or Fembarian?
I played as a male.
So you're in that 5%.
I played as a male because I was just like, I don't know, click, boom, let's get this game going.
Yeah, because, you know, people refer to Elderborn as thick barbarian chick simulator, and that's most for most people is the default.
Well, we've got Heat On for that. I definitely enjoyed the hell out of Heat On. My friend, I'll plug him on the podcast. His name's Red Eyes Green Dragon. Does amazing, just stupid YouTube videos, and also a lot of the video work for In the Keep. But he did a review of Heat On, which was just like him, and then next to a giant like cutout of the main character of Heat On, and he's just like looking like slowly upper thigh, and then the ass, and he's just like.
I saw the video, yeah.
This is a 10. Heat On review, 10. Oh, man. And then I guess we can kind of move towards wrapping this thing up with talking a lot more in depth about Postal Brain Damage, and then whatever else you want to talk about as well. So sure. Give us the elevator pitch for people who don't already follow Brain Damage. What's going on?
Holy fuck! Postal is a boomer shooter now. No, basically, you know what Dave Oshie does when he launches a new IP. He buys all the domains that, you know, some in a way tie into like there's a little elevator pitch in the domain name. For example, for Gloomwood. Yeah, it's called Gloomwood, I think.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's thiefwithguns.com or whatever.
Exactly. So it's thiefwithguns.com. So pretty soon I'll be buying the domain Postal at Dusk.
Okay.
And that's your elevator pitch. It's Postal at Dusk. Although, admittedly, we are going for much smoother gameplay than Dusk. It's like, here's another elevator pitch for you: Postal but playable. We are going for the smoothest, most responsive movement you would expect from a Quake tournament game. You get all the works, including bunny hopping, dashing on all sort of things, total control of the character. Fluid movement is the key for us. Plus all the very cool weaponry. Because, well, you know what you get in Postal games. You get a little bit of, actual weaponry and a little bit of wacky stuff that doesn't exist outside of Postalverse. But since we are going into this head, we are turning it up to 211, and you will finally get to shoot that brainfucker gun 69,000, and the shovel in Postal Brain Damage is not a regular shovel. It's a chainsaw shovel. So you get to do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't do in a regular Postal game.
Plus, you get to piss fluorescent yellow and green nastiness onto people, and it's good play.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Postal without it. Yeah. So it's got a lot of it's got some genes of a regular Postal game, but we've injected it with a lot of Quake and maybe Doom Eternal material as well. So it will feel like a very modern shooter game, look like a boomer shooter game, while being true to the core Postal game, a part of the Postal game, Postalverse. And there's a lot of speculation in the Postal community if whatever happens in Postal Brain Damage is going to be canon to Postalverse, which is very intriguing at the point of considering everything Postal a coherent timeline and talking about continuity in Postal. But people do figure out this stuff, and we are very respectful of the continuum, even though this is all just a dream, and we could just as easily do whatever. I like to joke around that we get a free pass on everything that we show in the game, because it isn't real. It's just in his head. But there are going to be a lot of tie-ins to the regular Postal games, and it's a shared universe. It's Postal did exist in the Postal universe, and Postal Brain Damage exists within the Postal did. That's the answer I'm going to give about the continuity and being canon.
Since we're already kind of touching on it, I mean, are you doing the vast majority of the writing for this?
So far, yes. And I do have Ricky on my side, so I can consult everything. But we are considering hiring some extra writers, because as much as a fan of Postal I am, and as much as I consider myself a decent writer, I don't get to speak English as much as I write English. I've been writing in English for 10 years, last 10 years every day, as a part of my work in gaming. And it did work for Elderborn, I believe, but I don't want, some language, things stuck out like a sore thumb, because I'm not a native.
Right.
So we consider, at least proofreading everything with the guys over at running with scissors. But alternatively, I'm thinking about hiring someone who will write better jokes than I would, and who would understand America a little bit better, because a huge part of Postal is it's American, and I've never been to the States even.
Oh, you can come to my house anytime.
And
We'll have a beer.
I'd love to. I'm getting vaxxed on next Friday, I think.
Yep.
So,
well, I mean, like, let's put it this way: if you come to visit Running with Scissors, I'm right there. Like, I'll just come on over and we'll all hang out.
yay!
But
So, yeah, maybe it would be a better idea for someone else to chip in at least, to give it some fine polish and to make sure it's really American, not just what our Eastern Bloc thinks America is.
yeah, I mean, we already said the dirty word, so I guess we can address it again. When Mike first showed me the trailer in his office, I was like, first of all, jaw drop. Like, I didn't expect that. He just told me, like, well, we have this project that I think is like kind of right for Realms Deep, and I was the one who told Fred, I was like, we gotta get Running with Scissors in. Like, they just make so much sense to be part of this. And I only knew about like Postal 2 and Postal 4, that kind of shit. Yeah. And when he showed me that, I was just like, oh fuck yeah, man. And I asked, like, who's developing it? And he said Hyperstrange. I'm like, that's the barbarian game people, right? And he's just like, yeah. I'm like, that's gonna be hella dope. And he shows me the trailer, and I loved it. And then I got to thinking a little bit more about it, and kind of the theme of what you've been getting here is like, okay, so we're gonna have like this whole new perspective on Postal Guy, and already we had just changed voice actors. Like, we had already just introduced John St. John as the Postal Guy, and if you're writing this, I'm like, are you working directly with John on that stuff, or is it kind of a playing telephone thing? Okay.
I'm not telling. It's going to be a big reveal at some point.
So John is like my hero. I fucking love him. He's an amazing human being. Just like the nicest fucking person I've ever interacted. He's in the intro to the podcast, not because I paid him to do anything. He was just like, hey man, you ever need anything, I'll do that. And I was like, thank you. God bless you, John St. John. And just like what,
well, he is a saint,
yeah. What we've seen so far, just the trailers and everything, like, I'm already enjoying like the voice lines and everything, but they don't sound too crazily divergent from anything that we've heard in the other games. Like, I would believe it if they just said like, oh, we just took John's lines from Postal 4 and stuck it in here. But I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more to it.
Yeah, well, we are not cutting any corners. We are not piggybacking on any of the Postal games. We are not, reusing any assets. Everything is done custom for Postal Brain Damage, including the voice work, of course.
Awesome. And then
still, I'm not telling.
That's fine. You don't have to tell.
But you can assume. I can't stop you.
So we're rounding the hour and a half mark here. We can talk as long as you want. We can take breaks if you need to. But like, if you would like to move along.
No, I wouldn't like to, overstay the welcome, because I don't really like. No, actually, personally, I really enjoy long podcasts, but I listen to them in small chunks.
Me too.
Yeah, so as for Postal Brain Damage, we already know that we are going to. This is going to be a brand at its own, because okay, it's a part of the Postal verse, and we're very happy to be a part of the Postal verse. But the feedback we are getting from the people, the reaction we initially got for the trailer, and then when we started actually showing stuff to people, we can already see this is going to. I'm torn between beating my own drum and being modest, but fuck being modest, this is going to be awesome.
I agree 100%.
Uh,
Can't wait to play it.
and you can already see bits of it on our Twitter, graciously retweeted by Paranic with Scissors as well. So you can get hints about the style of the game. And you've seen the announcement trailer. Well, have been a part of it, actually. But what you see in the announcement trailer comes from a very early pre-alpha footage of the game. At that point, we knew we were going to make Postal. It was already a done decision. But the build that was used to create the trailer was more of a proof of concept than actual, part of the game. So what you can see in the trailer is much in line with what you are going to see in the game, but the quality of the assets is going to be much higher in the actual game than you can see in the trailer. We are taking that that dreamlike, nightmarish style. We are turning it up to 11, and we are making sure it's got its very own, distinctive feel. Like you are, if you see dusk, you instantly know it's dusk. If you see Doom Eternal, you will say, "Oh, that's Doom Eternal," And if you are looking at, games that are a part of this large wave of throwback shooters that's surfacing now, many of them look alike.
Yeah.
Like
it's a huge problem for me.
Like, it's a little bit like from random generator. Put a demon name in the front and some action associated with shooter in the back, and you have the only title like Hell. No, that's an actual game. Hell Shooter. That's an actual game.
Are you aware of my war against Hell in the name of games?
Well, Jupiter Hell.
I know. I was going to bring it up at some point.
It makes sense, It makes sense for Jupiter Hell.
I'll actually go on record right now, because Jupiter Hell's been in development for like 20 years. It gets a pass. So I'll
Thank you.
I'll make sure Zach of E1M1 knows when they write about it in the magazine or whatever, that it gets the stamp of approval, the In the Keep stamp of approval. Hell pass.
That's nice. But we want Postal Brain Damage to be everything but generic. It's a really important goal for us to make everything about Postal Brain Damage to be cohesive and to stand out from all that stuff that you can see on Steam now. But we, at some point we even thought that we should spoof the whole movement of the throwback shooters, and when we knew that we are going to produce Postal, and we are already in pre-production for Postal Brain Damaged, and at some point there was this break in the production cycle. We already finished up Elderborn, and there was not much happening with Postal at the moment. We were waiting for the deal to go through with Running with Scissors. We had like 10-12 weeks of free time, more or less, and it was a heavy lockdown mode in Poland, and we had hired all those new people to Hyperstrange to work on Postal, and we figured out we should make a game. We should make a small game that's going to put us on the first-person shooter players map, because we've made a first-person slasher with Elderborn, and we already got our boomer cred for that, because that's a very boomer game. Because if you haven't ever watched He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, you probably won't get all the kicks you could have from Elderborn. So boomer cred was checked. We thought we should also check the shooter part of the deal, the shooter cred. And we've made a game which is our love letter to Devil Daggers. Because at the point everyone in the studio was playing Devil Daggers, and we would compete for the highest score and passed a lot of time in Devil Daggers. And we thought, well, we should make our own Devil Dagger type game, put it our own over the top grotesque spin on it. And because a huge part of the team is also in love with Bloodborne, we thought, okay, let's make something like that, something like Devil Daggers X Bloodborne or Devil Daggers X Painkiller, and make a really small, neat shooter game out of it. But when it came to putting a title on it, we went and decided to spoof the whole trend and gave it the most ridiculously generic name we could come up with. So the game is called Crossbow Bloodnight. And it got noticed. There are some YouTubers going through the game saying, what was it again? What was it called? Benedict Cumberbatch? Or stuff like that, and that was a bit of a joke on our part to put ourselves right there between the hell shooters and demon killers and stuff like that.
I got a
game?
copy of Crossbow for my E1M1 magazine subscription. Yeah.
And I played it. We gave away Crossbow to everyone who backed E1M1, and it achieved this. It achieved its original goal because we got the shooter cred, and recently we gave away a few copies of Crossbow, which at some point we also released on the Switch, because that's another thing. Postal Brain Damage is going to be a console game as well. And it's from the get-go, it's designed to work nicely on the PC with the standard mouse and keyboard layout. But from day one, it's also been designed with controller in mind, so we can put it on all the consoles, including the Switch.
So, are you guys doing the console ports, or are you shopping it out?
No, we are doing it ourselves.
Okay, because something I talked about a lot about with Vince was just he was very adamant, and this is probably more applicable to the prior Postal games that were designed for PC and only PC. But he was very adamant that you got to let a professional do that. You can't just decide one day that you're gonna come back and do it and do a lackluster job and it suck. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, well, we've already proven that we are professional at that as well.
Awesome.
Because Crossbow on the Switch, it's like the smoothest FPS out there on the Switch. It runs flawlessly at least 40 frames per second, even when you get a lot of enemies on the screen. So it's been, again, made with Postal in mind, because we wanted to make sure that we can put even on the Switch. And we succeeded at that. So you can expect Postal to make its way to all the consoles as well. But it was a part of this whole trend of boomer shooters that we wanted to put our foot in the door.
Now, is there anything else that we can expect from Hyperstrange that you're allowed to talk about yet, or is that pretty much the?
Well,
because I know that there's a super secret project. I don't know what it is. That's all I know.
Oh, Zach told you.
I can't say that I heard from Zach, but I am aware because I'm like Varys from Game of Thrones. Like I have little birds everywhere, you know. That otherwise I wouldn't be a very good journalist. Not that I'm a journalist, but you know, podcaster.
So there's a lot of things happening at Hyperstrange, and in just 2 weeks we are actually launching one of the games that we publish, and it's a strategy game, a bit of a city builder, a bit of a RTS with Vikings, you know, building a settlement. Great looking game, and the funny thing is that all those amazing concept arts for Postal that you see floating out there are made by the guy who's the art director for that game as well. And that's kind of the thing that happened again, because it's not only that artist that had a project on the side. We've hired another guy to do the 3D modeling and some of the 2D art and 3D art for Postal Brain Damage. And one day he comes to me and says, well, I would like to show you my passion project. So that passion project of his became another Hyperstrange IP, because we just, you know, we saw it and said, oh my god, this is cool. This is bloody cool. And really, like, it was a snap decision that this should not only be published by Hyperstrange, this should be Hyperstrange all over. So that guy became the core of the second team developing another game parallel to Postal Brain Damage. And this game is still not announced, but we hope to announce it maybe on Bronze League.
Thank you very much to Wojtek for being on the show. It was absolutely awesome to get to spend some time learning from someone with as much experience in the industry as he has. Absolutely go pick up Elderborn right fucking now. And make sure you go ahead and wishlist every other game on the Hyperstrange Steam page or GOG or wherever you like to buy your games. That was so cool. I want to say thank you to all of our supporters. Obviously, thank you to Paul, Moose, Dots, Zach, Alexander, Brad, Red Eyes, Anthony, Robert, Jack, Brandy, Fred, Lord Revan, Tones, Igrax, Simon, and Morpher. Everybody at the Flam Fam, Mike, Zan, Bridge, Ben, and Donkey. You're all incredible. Everybody that you just heard, and a few other select people who are amazingly supporting In The Keep via Patreon, or you can even go to our coffee page. Just head over to inthekeep.com/support. We got links to all that shit there, but they're all getting episodes early, including the next 2 episodes that I've already recorded, which are with Waffle Iron Studios and Major Arlene. So look forward to those, and if you are a subscriber, you get them as soon as I finish editing them. So something to look forward to. But they're also all getting brand spanking new In The Motherfucking Keep t-shirts with the sick-ass new logo. So all y'all chumps out there who have the old one, well, keep it, because that's a fucking collector's item. And I actually still have a few of those, too, I can pass out if people are interested in them. But the new logo is the new logo. Enjoy it. One more thing before I sign out of here. Make sure you tune in this weekend, assuming you're listening to the show, you know, when it comes out. The 15th, Saturday, Organ Grinder. Be there, or be square. Tasty Spleen's Twitch channel. Don't be a bitch. I love you all. The Drowned God Cathala loves you all. And let's just let the rest of this awesome song from Elderborn roll out. Peace.